welcome to our webinar today on pastoring through a pandemic. Thanks so much for joining us. We know that we are all in kind of these unprecedented times and we are all trying to figure it out. We know that our mission of what we're doing hasn't changed, but how we are having to do it has changed. And so today, that's what we're just going to spend a little bit of time talking about in this unique season, how can we truly pastor people and what does that look like for us? But first, to get started, my name is Tracy Atfield, and I'm on the North Point Partner Team. I'm a consultant in the adult ministry area, and today I'm with two of my friends, Raul and Debbie. So I'll let them introduce themselves. Raul, will you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey, my name is Rahul Agarwal, and I'm over here at Gwinnett Church, and I work with men's and married groups.
And I'm Debbie Kazi, and I am at North Point and North Point Ministries as the care director.
All right, great. Well, thanks y'all for joining us today. So as Raul mentioned, he's with the kind of the group side of things and Debbie's with the care side of things. And for me, I just get to get the privilege of seeing churches around the country and kind of what they're doing in this area. So altogether, hopefully we'll have a broad perspective and this time will be helpful for you. So just one thing that I heard last week that I thought was so incredibly powerful was Tim Elmore was on a webinar with Jeff Henderson, and he said this quote of, "We're all in the same boat, but not in the same storm." And so I thought that was so profound because we are all in the same boat of kind of shelter in place, figuring things out. But we're in different storms. Each one of us has a different story. We have different circumstances, and we all will kind of react to it differently. And as we think about our ministry and kind of our group's ministries particularly, that is going to be the case. So everyone's going to react a little bit differently. And what we want to do is just kind of pastor them where they're at. So just to kind of get us started here is, as we said, our title is Pastoring Through a Pandemic. So Raul, I'd love for you to kind of share what are some effects that you're starting to see as we go through this pandemic, kind of how has it changed from a couple weeks ago to today?
Yeah, it's crazy just talking to leaders and feeling some anxiety and fear and tension, especially as their group members are starting to realize jobs are being lost. And so they're feeling the heaviness of this, like, how do I pastor my group now? What do we do about that? The other thing that I'm starting to notice, and I don't know if you all have noticed this, but it's really starting to sink in that this is not going away anytime soon. Like, this is truly that statement. It's our new normal. It has become our new normal. We were saying that just to get by, but now it's like, oh wait, no, we're being serious. This is our new normal for a while. And even when we get back to normal, we don't know what normal is going to look like anymore. And I don't know about you all, but anybody I talk to is like an Enneagram 7, if you know the Enneagram test, or a yellow on the temperament assessment. Oh my gosh, that's what I'm both of those, and not seeing people is killing me. And so a lot of my leaders are kind of just like, bro, I just want to see somebody physically. This Zoom thing is great. These Google Hangouts are great, but I just need to see someone physically. And I'm like, sorry, I can't help you with that part, but I'm feeling the same brunt of that. That's how things are changing a lot for people today.
Yeah, well, Debbie, how about you?
Well, some of the things that I think I'm noticing is that our normal ways of connecting are limited, just like Raul was saying. And so it makes it very hard for us to feel connected to each other. So therefore, relationships, we're noticing, are way more strained. They're almost under pressure cookers because we're in each other's business. The people that we are living with are right on top of us. And so we have those pressure cooker relationships going on. Our normal ways of distracting ourselves, whether that be shopping. And sometimes distraction is not bad. Sometimes it's very good if you have some mental health challenges. So even those normal ways of distracting ourselves are very limited to maybe television or Pinterest or something like that. So I'm noticing that. And then I'm also noticing that anybody that does struggle with mental health challenges, their risk has gone way up. Those of us that struggle with anxiety or depression, it's greater right now because, our emotional capacity is already full.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, for those watching, but I feel like in our house, we're a little bit like, we're always there, like all of us together.
Yeah.
It provides a lot of great opportunities, but also some challenges, And Raul, as you said, this is kind of a new normal. So we're just kind of having to get used to it. Well, I know some other ways that I feel like has kind of changed for us is people used to sometimes put on Facebook or different things like prayer requests, but I feel like we've been seeing a ton of through Facebook Live and Instagram, people are like sharing more of their heart when it comes on digitally, so it's like on Facebook Live of sharing prayer requests and sharing what's going on, whereas they might not have done that before, and they might not have even come into our church building before. So I don't know about y'all, but I think that's so cool that people are sharing digitally kind of what's going on, and then we have the opportunity to reach out personally, beyond that, to kind of connect with them. And I think another thing that has been really cool to see is so many, I know with our churches and with so many partner churches and other churches I've seen, of just really kind of connecting people who have needs with people who can help meet those needs. And so we're having the opportunity to really be the church in our communities, which has been so cool, whether it's individuals or partnering with ministries in our area and stuff, and food pantries and things like that. So that has been really neat. But I know, Raul, you kind of said this of like, we don't really know what things are going to look like. But I mean, if you had a crystal ball, like what do you think is where we're going to go in a month or a couple months or even a year from now?
Yeah, I think this is our new normal for a while, so we need to help our leaders understand that. And Debbie, you've said some things about this that's really helpful, how we're never going to go back completely to the way things are used to be. Can you speak on that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, we keep hearing, whether it's on the news or some sort of avenue, that things are not going to go back completely to normal. And for some of us, that could be really stressful to think about. And for some of us, we could think, oh, there's good parts to that and there's hard parts to that. But as far as until we find a vaccine or an effective treatment for this virus, we may be looking at months without shaking hands, without that physical contact. Yeah, using those elbows. And for some of us that are physical touch, that could be distressing. For others, they might be, yay, this is something that will be good. But I know that it won't be the same for a very, very long time if it does go back to being the same. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of goes to, Lynn put in a chat of just kind of the idea of whenever we do get past this, of how do we know what things are going to look like? Will people go to crowded things? As we think of church, I mean, we're, Sunday is an event for us. And so, what is that going to look like? And Lynn, I think we're kind of all in the same boat of going, we're not sure yet. We're still trying to figure that out. And so I think some of what we have learned from this will probably continue and will adapt what the future looks like. But of course, I think we would all hope that we would hope and pray that we kind of get a lot of what we did have back. It just it might not be all of it. So yeah, that's a great question. So as Raul did the elbow bump there, that might be what greeters are going to be doing. We don't know. So I think there's so much to learn. So Lynn, thanks for kind of bringing that up, because I think it's real and we're all trying to figure that out. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like for us as, pastors, and as we think about pastoring others, what about ourselves? And as we think about caring for our leaders, it's kind of like we've got to care for ourselves first. But, we're all still, working from home. A lot of us are homeschooling our kids. We are, caring for others and caring for our community. And so what are some recommendations that you have for how can we care for ourselves, for us to remain emotionally, physically, and spiritually healthy? So Debbie, would you mind sharing about that?
Yeah, I think this is really, really important because like Tracy said, our gear is to look at others and to focus on others and how we can help them. And we see others struggling and we want so badly to help them. But just like they say on the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on first. I think we are going to say the same thing, because the reality is that we are beyond our emotional capacity right now. So caring for others is going to be really difficult when our own bucket is already full. So there are a few things that you can do to make that bucket a little less full. It's not going to be a lot less full, but a little less full. And the first thing is to recognize that what we're experiencing right now is really grief. If you think about it from that perspective, you might have a little bit more love for yourself, a little more grace for yourself. We are experiencing an enormous amount of grief. We're not only grieving the loss of life, which is part of this, even if it's somebody that you don't know, we're collectively grieving those losses. We're grieving the losses of income. We're grieving the losses of jobs, connection with each other, our daily routine. We're grieving the loss of a sense of safety. We have come to know a sense of safety in the United States of America, and we don't really have that right now. We have this uncertainty of what this invisible enemy, as they call it, is doing to us as a country, and how prepared we are to tackle that. So we're really grieving right now. And like I said, our grief buckets are full. So we don't really have a lot of emotional capacity to care for each other. But recognizing that you're grieving is going to be helpful, because then when it comes in waves like we know grief does, or when we all experience grief differently, we can have that extra grace for each other, knowing that we're grieving. The second thing you want to recognize is that we have what's called anticipatory grief. And this is going to like the worst case scenario. We automatically do that as human beings. It's very natural. But anticipatory grief is really anxiety. So it's important to know you have some anxiety. I don't think that's a shock to anybody out there right now that we are experiencing anxiety. But what you might not know is that anxiety is really normal. I'd almost be worried if you weren't experiencing anxiety right now. And to just allow yourself to feel it instead of trying to shove it away, trying to tell yourself not to worry. There's actually some evidence or some research that if you allow yourself a worry period every single day, whether that's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that it decreases your amount of worry throughout and anxiety as a result throughout the day, because you have designated that time. So you go, okay, 5 o'clock is my worry period. I'm starting to worry right now. I'm going to push that off to 5 o'clock. And then when 5 o'clock runs around, you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to worry. And then you're like, I'm not going to worry. And you end up worrying less. To tell yourself that you can't worry right now, or tell somebody else stop worrying, that's never effective. So we have to have some of these strategies in place to replace those. And one of those is to have that designated worry period. Another thing you can do is to balance your anxiety when you start to notice those worst case scenarios coming into your mind, and you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to get the virus and I'm going to die from the virus. Replace it with the best case scenario. The majority of people don't have to go to the hospital. The majority of people are not in my situation. Just make sure there's a balance. It's not that you get rid of one or the other. It's just you don't let one dominate the other. And then the last thing I would say is look for meaning in all of this. Look for the positives, the things to be grateful for, the prioritizing of relationships, what this has meant. Viktor Frankl had a great book, The Search for Meaning, that if you have extra time to read right now, then I would go and order that book on Amazon. It might take a month to get to you because of the delays in non-essentials, but maybe that's considered an essential right now. But some other ways to care for yourself that are sort of no-brainers that you've probably heard a lot about is, to keep a routine. Even if you're at home and you want to wear your pajamas, I think you should get into real clothes and have a routine for your day. There's so much research about how that helps your mental health. Anybody that has a diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis, knows keeping a routine is the number one thing that we want to do. So all of us are experiencing emotional pain right now, so we all need to have that routine. Move, exercise, take walks, eat healthy, and then stay connected. And like Raul was saying earlier, and reach out for that support. If it's becoming too much and you need some support, reach out to us at the church, at the churches, and also reach out to a counselor in your area. They are needed right now. So that would be what I would recommend for some self-care.
Debbie, those are awesome. I'm going to use some of those in my leaders. I've interspersed some of that stuff with myself, and realizing that doesn't just help me, that'll also help my leaders. For me, keeping a routine and making, like, my family's making fun of me. They're like, why are you getting up at 6:30 every day? You can literally wake up for your 9 o'clock meeting, put a shirt on, don't worry about pants, and you're good to go, right? And so, like, for me,
we might not have pants on right now.
Oh, you don't even know.
Oh, y'all, let's not go there.
But for me, like, keeping a routine and then exercise exercising and eating healthy, I was letting myself go. I was not worrying, but I was dealing with depression, not seeing anybody. But when I started doing that, it helped me so much. And then that helped me care for my leaders even better, because I wasn't telling them to do things I wasn't already doing. So that was very good. Thank you, Debbie.
And that idea of a worry period, honestly, that's new to me. Like, I hadn't heard that before or thought about it. So I'm like, okay, maybe this afternoon I'll have a little worry period that I'll just push it all aside until then. So yeah, super practical and helpful. Thank you for sharing those. Well, and one thing too is I'd love for you guys that are listening, if you want to share in the chat kind of where you're from, and if there's anything that has resonated with you or any self-care items that you guys have found helpful, please feel free to share that, because we all want to be learning together and help each other. So, I like that. Jeff asked, do worry periods come with ice cream? Of course they can. And then you go exercise.
Yeah.
And then go exercise.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, my daughter's been baking more that she's been home. And so I have to exercise to eat her desserts every day.
Yes, I hear you. Well, I've been the one baking, and our son is like, would you please stop making stuff, because this is not good. And I'm like, what? You're supposed to be eating it up. But anyway, but Lynn, thanks for sharing. You're in Half Moon Bay, California, in the San Francisco area. Our daughter lives out there, so we're praying for that area all the time. So, and Jeff in Jonesboro. So that's awesome. Thanks, you guys, for sharing that. Well, as we kind of transition from self-care and that idea of like, we really have to be caring for ourselves if we want to be able to care for others, like Debbie said, put on your oxygen mask first so then you can help others. And so as we think about kind of pastoring others, we want to pastor their heart first and foremost. But right now, some of our leaders, they're like, hey, I'm just trying to get toilet paper and eggs. It's like they have more immediate needs. And it's kind of funny because I thought about this. When did you ever think in your life you would see requests for toilet paper on Facebook? I've had friends who posted of like, hey, does anybody know what store has toilet paper, or does anybody have a couple extra rolls? I'm like, what? This is just not what we're used to. So again, you've got to find humor and joy in all of this for sure. But we're just in different times. So, as we think about our small groups, and we always say that circles are better than rows. And because we want to create small circles of people that are the church in our community. Church is not the building on Sunday. We have the opportunity to be churches in our community, these small churches of circles, so people can connect relationally and grow spiritually. So as you think about caring for your leaders and just that our church, that's what we want to do as the church. We want to pastor them first, and we want to ask, hey, how are you doing? And not just how are you doing, but also how are you feeling? Their group, and actually as we think about kind of their group management, so to speak, at this point, that is secondary to caring for them. That's got to come first right now. And I know it was so cool. I was talking to one of our partner churches in Texas last week, and we were talking about this, and he said that his lead pastor and the executive pastor have kind of cared and loved him and his family so much during this. It has just filled him up and given him the opportunity to pass that along to his leaders, who then pass it along to their group members. And then you think about the impact to community from people who are able to do that. And it's just amazing. So just that idea of caring for people needs to come first and foremost. So Debbie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just important to say, don't assume that your leaders are okay. Don't assume that other people are okay. We recently did a survey for our staff, and it was just a survey about COVID-19 and how all of us are doing. And I think the results are surprising because we found that a lot of people are worried. People tend to try to look like they have it all together, like they're not worried, because we're told we're not supposed to be anxious and all of that. So let's not assume that people are okay. Let's check in on our leaders and ask them, how are you doing emotionally, not just physically and with your needs for toilet paper, but how are you doing emotionally with all of this? How is this hitting you? What are you most concerned about? What do you need the most? How can I pray for you, right now? And if they have mental health challenges, if they already struggle with anxiety or depression and so forth, make sure to check in on those folks, especially if it's yourself. Check in on yourself if you have those things as well, because like I said, the chances of those emotions being more right now are very, very large. So those are some things I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Raul, we just had a question come in from Tim in Columbia, Tennessee. And he just says, any advice on how to make leaders not feel defensive if you want to connect with them and they haven't been meeting? So he said, I want to bless them and not make them feel guilty. So What would you say to that?
Oh gosh, that is so hard because you're right. This is like the time, just like what Debbie's been saying about self-care. We want to help them not feel guilty during this time, but at the same time, people need connection more than ever. And it's so easy with all these connection opportunities to be so disconnected. So I've had that many times with my leaders. And some of the things I tell them is, hey, listen, keep these people connected, because this might be the only point of connection they have, because they might not have a connection to the church or even anybody else in their community. But at the same time, if you're like, I don't know how to do it, I'm getting overwhelmed, find out why they don't want to meet, and then tell them it's okay to adapt your group. You're like, our study's just not working right now. That's okay. Don't do a 1 week study, change it. Don't do a study at all. Just do a check-in and be like, okay, on what I do with my group is on a scale of 1 to 10, hold up how many fingers based on how you're feeling. And like if someone holds up a 5, I'm like, tell me more about that 5, and allows the group to have a point of connection that's not necessarily information. It's more relational, which is what people need more, because there's plenty of content out there right now, isn't there? Everyone and their mother's putting content out there. But this way, many leaders were feeling, I just don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. And I didn't want to make them feel guilty. So I just said, do what feels good for your group, but keep meeting, even if it's for 30 minutes. Just check in and see how they're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I would even say, like, for our personal group, we lead a group of just married couples. And so these sweet young couples, they've been married less than 2 years, and all of a sudden they're together all the time. And so they're like, oh, hey, so talk about a great way to start a marriage, right? But we were in the middle of a marriage study when this kind of came up, and we switched to digital groups. And, Raul, we were kind of doing like what you said, of just this, like, checking in and how's everybody doing. But we actually did kind of finish our study, but we adapted it to completely be around, okay, given your current circumstances of shelter at home, and we're doing a marriage study. So how can you come out of this how can you be on the other side of this with a stronger marriage than what you went into it with? So we kind of adapted the questions, we adapted the study, and we also just shortened our group time. We're like, normally we'd meet for 2 hours, and we were like, okay, we're going to meet for an hour max, because digitally it's just a little bit different. So, I think it's just that whole thing of adapting to what does your group need. And it doesn't mean that it has to be a study or it has to be your structured curriculum like what you would normally do. But it's like, okay, let's do something different and be flexible with it and kind of just meet the needs of where people are at. So that's awesome. Well, what other advice would you give to group leaders right now, Raul?
Yeah, everything you said, Tracy, was spot on. Some things I would add is make sure you laugh together. I don't know about you, but reading the news or even just hearing anything about COVID makes me down. We need to laugh together and have fun in groups. In fact, even before this, we did a survey with all of our groups for all of our campuses. And the number one reason people stayed in groups was because they laughed together. And so keep that going. The way like tonight with my married group, we're having a sports night. And so we're all going to put on our favorite sports gear and talk about it and rep our sports teams. So have theme nights, do online games.
I love that you're going to be doing sports night, but you're not going to get to watch live sports for a while.
Listen, Tracy,
reenact it.
I just heard the NFL might not even come back, and I'm a huge Dolphins fan. So I'm like, I'm repping my Dolphins gear tonight. I don't care. We got to do something. But yeah, and so see stuff like that, you get news like that, we got to keep it light in a group. And so we're playing online games like Quiplash or Singo. Those are super fun to play. One of my groups did a scavenger hunt. They came out with like, who could come up with the most rolls of toilet paper on the screen, and they won a Chick-fil-A gift card for $5 or something that the group leader gave them, or just random things around your house.
Okay, now Raul, on that one, wasn't there one that was like, get out as much like 4 Gwinnett gear as you had or something like that? Because that's like Gwinnett's big thing is 4 Gwinnett. It's on everything they produce.
Yeah,
so
Yep. So you have a mug,
Debbie.
Yeah.
Thank you for repping Gwinnett.
I have 4 Gwinnett gear that I can't bring up right now because it's too big. But yeah, that was a good one. That was hilarious. Something else we do in groups that I'm encouraging is if you don't have a group text or a group me, that app, set that up now so you can keep communication going during the week. And again, it could be prayer request or this can get out of hand, but we do share your favorite GIF right now. And they are hilarious. Do you say GIF or GIF? I say GIF. I don't know. What do you say, Debbie?
GIF.
I think Tracy,
GIF.
are you a GIF?
I'm sure, whatever. You guys know technology is, I'm so up on it.
Yeah.
But share your favorite meme or something like that. And those are hilarious. Just be ready because the conversation gets derailed real fast, but it is worth it, especially during now. But those are some quick tips I have along with the content thing you said, Tracy. Sometimes you just need to chill on your content and just relax it a bit and just check on people and do connection things more so than a study. Debbie,
Okay.
you have some things on this too, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar to what Tracy was just saying. And I kind of feel like Raul gets to be the fun one and I get to be the deep, serious Debbie Downer over here.
I get it.
I want to be fun too. I want to do some of the things you said. Quiplash is a lot of fun. So I think we're going to try that. I don't know if I'm technically savvy enough to do what'd you say, Singo, but I've heard about it and I think we're going to try it. One thing we don't want to forget about are our single friends, because we've talked a lot about the people that we're living with and the relationship strain, but there's a lot of single folks that feel very much alone right now and wish they had somebody to be in a pressure cooker with as far as relationship strain. So I think it's really important to have these kind of avenues for group that involve our single friends, and we make sure that they are getting connected as much as possible because they're feeling a lot of loneliness and isolation. But one thing we're trying at North Point is trying some series, like Andy did a series called In the Meantime, and Clay did a series called Mind Traps. And so we're doing some digital short-term groups. Maybe they last 3 weeks, maybe they last 4 weeks. And we're seeing if people want to sign up for those. Those signed up, we had signups for those within 12 hours. They filled up. People are wanting to talk about this particular, pandemic, but also in a spiritual way or in a way that's going to give them some comfort. And so one thing you can try is to do some series, kind of like what Tracy was saying, where it specifically has to do with these kind of uncertain times. That's something you could try as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, like you said, we just have a lot of new ways that we can connect with people, and they're more likely sometimes to connect with us because of that. So we've been talking about some things that, these are things that we're doing, but sometimes we try stuff and we realize, hey, we think people need this, but they really don't need it. So what are some of the things that we've tried or that we're just being made aware of that are kind of new given this time period? Okay.
Constant communication. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you, but everyone is doing an Instagram live at noon. If you go to Instagram, I'm like, what in the world? I get so many notifications, and there's constant communication. Like I mentioned earlier, content is very available right now. We don't necessarily need connection all the time, but we need to be with our connection and our conversations and our communication. Oh, that's 3 C's. We need to make sure that we are really poignant and strategic with what we're doing so we don't overwhelm people. That's one of the things I would say.
Yeah. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel this almost like digital fatigue. I feel like I'm on Zoom all day long and in meetings, and I'm like, there's sometimes where I'm like, okay, guys, I just need like 5 minutes to like get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, and then I'm ready to start the next meeting, so kind of that idea of digital fatigue and how do we not wear out people? And look at all y'all watching this right now. So thank you, because you're probably experiencing this, kind of like we are. But just that it's just new for us and we're kind of trying to figure it out. But how do we not kind of move into that digital fatigue area?
Absolutely. I think another thing is something our team is realizing is people don't want trainings right now. Right at the beginning of this, we had a training scheduled with all this content, and it was fabulous because we came up with it, of course, right? but really, we ended up halfway through the training, we realized the questions that our leaders were asking, and they were just focused on surviving. They were just like, how do I keep my group going? Do I use this Zoom thing? I heard about all the security issues. What do I do about that? How do I keep my people wanting to talk, because they don't even want to meet online because they think this is going to pass over. And so what we realized is they wanted more just support and less trainings or even development right now, which I thought was interesting because everything you see on social media right now is, oh, this is a great time to write a book. This is a great time to learn something new. I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of learning. Like, I just want to survive and just play a video game or just relax or something, Yeah,
I totally get that. People are like, what new hobby and everything? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, maybe we'll get to that point, but I'm just not there yet. So, but who knows? Oh goodness. Well, thanks for sharing those, Raul. Well, as we as we've been talking about, okay, basic needs, and we're all getting adjusted to new things and caring for people. How can we proactively care for our group leaders? How can we let them know like some really practical things that we care for them as individuals? So kind of this idea of what shows them value. So Raul, what does that look like for you as you're caring for your leaders?
Yeah, I'll do some quick hits of what we do. One of the things we do is a check-in, whether that's a call or a text. If someone comes on our minds, we just call them or text them real quick. It's funny. More people than ever are actually picking up their phone. So when I do a phone call, it's normally not a voicemail like it's been before. Now it's actually a 15-minute conversation, which they greatly appreciate. Something we've been also trying is Zoom calls with all our leaders together, just so they can see each other and feel connected to the church. Those have been actually more successful than we expected, because after the call, they're like, just thank you for letting us see other people in the church. And so we're doing those every other week for our leaders. And then
as you do those, real quick, Raul, as you do those for your leaders, like what is the content of those calls?
Oh, it's literally, how are you doing? And do you have any questions?
Okay.
That's
okay.
it. So going back to the development thing, we're not preparing anything. So they're really easy to do, but we're not really preparing any content, because all the questions they're asking, we're getting from individual texts and emails that we can provide there as they come on. And they're optional, of course. So whoever feels they need them, come on. And the ones who do need them are the ones who are on there. And it's just fantastic to hear whatever. The best part is when other leaders start praying over other leaders in the middle of the call. That's been huge. And that's when the church is the church. And that I love, when I can step back and let the Holy Spirit work in that moment. Another thing we do that we started was a group text. Remember how I mentioned it for your group? We're telling leaders to do that for your group. We started that for our leaders. And Tracy, you're in one of those, and those are fun. And they're just a great time to share, aren't they?
They are interesting. It's a group me that is very active. I'll look at my phone and it'll be like 20 new messages. I'm like, holy cow, like what are the, what's going on? But it's super fun. And what I love is like all the, like the quiplash and the games and all of that, just the idea sharing that's gone on. I know I've learned a ton just from reading that and getting ideas from others that I'm like, we're just kind of stealing that idea and using it in our own group. So that's been awesome.
We've also shared in some of those avenues, even our Facebook groups that we created, stuff. Debbie, you've written like one of those self-care articles. That was a great resource for our leaders. So thank you for that. And they really appreciate that. Anytime we can share group ideas, and even through email or any avenue, they've noticed those resources are more helpful to them, so that they don't have to think about their group as much or what to do. So they've really appreciated that. And then I think the last thing that we've really done that they said has been helpful is clear and easy next steps for how to get help for people in their group. Because I think, Debbie, you're going to talk about this in a little bit, but they're just figuring out, how do I pastor my group when there's job loss and stuff? And so being able to provide counseling referrals and financial assistance, that's been super helpful.
Yeah, we have noticed, as we've all been flying by the seat of our pants as far as how do you care for people during a pandemic. We've never had a pandemic, so we're all learning as we go, right? But one of the earliest things we figured out was that people were going to have emotional, financial, and physical needs. The financial ones we hear about every single day with the different strategies to help with that, different packages to try to help with that. But we learned as a church, we can do something as far as that goes too. So our MoneyWise team, which is our financial team, they got together this resource, which we'll share with you the link somehow on this call, to be able to see what's happening nationally. What are some numbers to call? What local utility companies are giving you grace as far as your bill goes? What are your first 4 bills that you should pay? We made a document that gives them these resources so they don't have to look them up for themselves. They don't have to find them. They can just plug it in. And we did the same thing for the emotional relief, finding a counselor. I really believe that every single person right now, as we go through this, is going to need a counselor. This is a traumatic event. So it's not just safe for those of us that have some extra needs there. Everybody's going to need this. So we put on this document, what are the key topics for singles? What are the key topics for people that are married? What are some challenges things to look toward and know how to solve, and how to get in touch with a counselor. If you can do one thing or two things as group leaders or group staff, is to make sure you have taken care of your counseling referral list, and that you have ways to help people financially, because this is not the person that we help that is always in a crisis and doesn't manage their money well, and we're trying to figure out how to help them. We're trying to help everybody financially right now, because this is affecting everybody financially. So we need to be able to help with some relief. And so those are two really big things that you could do, and we'll make those resources available. You will have to tweak them to be for your current area, but like I said, a lot of it is a national relief information. So we'll get to that.
Absolutely. Well, and Debbie, even as you say that of like the church helping with relief, that's not necessarily our church paying for people, but it's more connecting them with organizations or different people who could help in different ways that are, most of them for us are already partnerships that we have in our community with kind of people who do things really, really well, and they do them better than what we could do them. And so it's just, it's how can we as the church connect people to the right people for them to get help? So that has been really great. But, even as you talked about that, and again, kind of going back to Tim Elmore's quote of, we're all in the same boat, but not in the same storm. Right. As you mentioned, like single people before, of their experience is very different. It can be lonely and isolated. And married couples, they're, you said kind of that pressure cooker relationships, and parents they're trying to figure out homeschooling in addition to working. And elderly, they're a lot of times lonely and isolated, and they might not be super into technology. Someone I was talking to this morning said that their 98-year-old grandfather does like Zoom and all of that. And I'm like, I love that. That's who I want to be when I'm 98. I have high goals. But just that idea of even, I know, right? For elderly who maybe they're not really into technology yet. And I know we had a question about this from Tony, of maybe a way that you can help people virtually connect. It might be to, really walk them through step by step of how to connect, and maybe start simple, on a phone call, walk through computers and how to do it. And maybe they don't have a computer, which obviously then that's a different issue. But, one thing that most of our churches are doing too is calling everyone, that's more a senior citizen and asking, hey, how's it going? And so I think that there's ways that we can, really connect with people and really think about almost that idea, how can we be empathetic to where people are and what their story is, whether they're single, whether they're married, parenting, elderly, whatever, wherever they're at in life. We just have to kind of be empathetic and think, how can we care for them right there? And it's going to be different, for everybody. And so again, it's a cool opportunity that we have as the church, that's for sure, to be personal in ways that we sometimes don't always get to be, personal. Like Raul said, people are picking up their phone and talking on their phone now. And that's not something that, we're kind of used to. So, but what are some, Debbie, like as we have group leaders that they're talking to their group members, and what are some things that red flags that they might hear, for example, that you're like, okay, that is too much for them to handle. They need to be prepared to pass that off to a church staff member. Like, how can we kind of help our leaders know where that line is of, hey, we're here and we can help? So what are some things that you've seen that would be red flags for them with their group members? Yeah,
well, like I said earlier, just remember, we're all in this boat. We're all in this area where we might have too much on us. But some specific things that you really want to look out for is the person sleeping too much? Are you sleeping too much? Maybe some of you are given more opportunity to sleep. We're not talking about that, which, by the way, I am more busy than I've ever been. So I'm looking for some time to do a hobby. hobby or read a book.
Same here.
I don't think that's going to happen for me anytime soon. But so if they're sleeping too much and that's not normal for them, if they have unusual mood swings, we're not talking about the strain of relationships here. These are abrupt mood swings where they're angry one minute and then maybe they're not the next minute. If they're talking about hopelessness or there's no solutions or they feel very trapped, but they're talking about it, on a regular basis and that this is concerning, maybe depression-wise. And then if you're noticing some like OCD behaviors, maybe washing your hands more than the rest of us are washing our hands and checking things, and some anxiety type behaviors that are just not typical for everybody else in this pandemic. So anything just exaggerated, I would be concerned about. Of course, any talk about suicide is going to be a no-brainer, or that hopelessness. Typically, we know, okay, this is above our heads, and we need to get a mental health professional involved here, or at least a staff member in the interim to a mental health professional. So, yeah, those would be the things that I would really, really look out for.
Okay. And Raul, tell us about, because with your group leaders, how are you kind of prepping them in these specific areas of like, hey, call me when you kind of get to, when you're hearing this from a group member or even yourself. So how kind of are you coaching your leaders to know those red flags?
Yeah, exactly what Debbie's saying. As we hear from leaders, like somebody's lost a job or someone's just really depressed, I say, okay, talk to me. How are you sticking with them? How's the group caring for them? Are they checking in on them? And then I would send them the link to our website and saying, are any of these resources helpful? I had one leader recently who he just needed counseling because he was just feeling so depressed. So I connected him to our care guy. His name's Jeremy. And now we're working out how to get him counseling and even help cover some of the costs because he just lost his job at the same time. And so for him, he was very appreciative of that because then that happened into someone in his group and he knew exactly what to do. And so that's kind of the things we're walking with right now. I'm sure everyone who's listening is dealing with the same stuff or at least similar things because we just got to be there for them. And then based on their questions and based on even their tone on the phone calls or even a text. And sometimes I'll get a text and I'll say, can you do a phone call? And I'm not a phone guy. I can't stand talking on the phone. I'm like, just text me all day, please. But I've been doing more phone calls more than ever because you can't tell tone over text. Mm-hmm. And then I tell them the same thing. Have you called this person in your group to see how they're doing or hear how they're doing? And how's their voice sound? And then I give them the resources that Debbie was talking about.
So good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And Raul, I think you're probably happy to talk on the phone because you're just being your yellow 7. You're happy. You'd love to connect with anybody.
I prefer in person. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But hey, second best.
Yeah, I'll take it.
That's great. Well, Debbie, as you mentioned before, kind of this idea of everyone is grieving right now and that our grief buckets are full and we're just kind of like, oh my goodness, no one is immune. So how can we really help people who are grieving? And how can we help, especially because we can't be together? Like Raul said, he loves to be with people. We can't go hug somebody that we would love to or sit down and have coffee with someone right now. So what does that look like to helping them with grief?
Well, it's really no different than what we're used to. I would say it's the same way that we help people that are grieving outside of a pandemic. Not necessarily digitally, but as far as what we would do, we would listen to them. We would offer to pray with them. We would give them a next step. All of that is the same. The difference here, though, is that we're having to do it while we're also grieving ourselves, and we're having to do it without being in person. So one thing that I have done on a regular basis is I've used Zoom. I feel like this is a commercial for Zoom for sure. But even my one-on-ones that I have with my staff or that I have with individuals, I do it over Zoom so that I can see their face and I can look at their, inflections and different things that they're showing. And really be able to give them some eye contact, maybe not great eye contact, but some eye contact, which is so important for somebody that is hurting. But yeah, as far as what we do, it looks very similar to what we would have done outside of this pandemic. And we use the acronym LOG. So it's listen, offer to pray, and then give a next step. That's kind of our goal, is to always give somebody a next step, whether that's another mental health professional to help them, or a group, or a short-term group that they could get involved in, or a person that they can connect with in some way. Giving them that next step is often the best thing you can do for somebody.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
That's really good.
Yeah. So kind of, if you could boil it all down to one thing, what is the one thing that you would want churches or pastors to know as they're thinking about pastoring others right now? Debbie, what would be your one thing?
Take care of yourself. I mean, check on yourself. Make sure that your emotional tank is not overflowing and that you are going to have, a panic attack tomorrow because you've allowed your bucket to be too full. So take care of yourself is a no-brainer for me.
Okay. All right. Raul, how about you?
Remind them that you are for them because God is for them. And so that you're available and that you're always going to be there for them. You can just say that, like, they can call you with any issue going on so that they know that they're not alone. And that's hard because you have to provide community for people, especially as leaders. It's so hard. It's so easy for us to take the brunt of our group and put it on ourselves. And I'm speaking as a group leader because I am. And so we need people above us or who are over us, or even just watching out for us, which many people don't have that right now. And as the church, this is one of the best times we can show why the church exists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, talk about getting to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Now we're doing it mostly digitally, but we do have an amazing opportunity ahead of us just to love people like Jesus would want us to love. And so it's an amazing opportunity right now. But let's move to Q&A. So I know we've answered some of the questions as we've gone, but does anybody have any specific questions that they would like to put in the chat feature or the Q&A feature? So feel free to kind of drop some of those in there. I know one answer, I appreciate that Lynn answered this to Tony, of talking about one of the small groups with older members, that they set up phone conferencing instead of trying to do a Zoom or something like that. That was a little too much for them, but they know how to use their phones. So Lynn, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. And yeah, it's less than ideal, but it's better than nothing. So I love that.
Hey, Tracy, let me bounce off of that. Yeah, you can Google free phone conferencing. I've done that for a lot of our older groups who don't want to do that. But someone in the chat asked the flip side. What about young adults who just don't want to meet because they like in person? I had a group who was dealing with that, a couple of groups, and I just said, hey, let them have space, but at the same time, you're the leader. Provide the opportunity. Don't, if they're saying they don't want to meet, but you think we should, then meet and see whoever wants to come. And they'll vote by their clicks, I guess, by jumping in, because the people who want it will still jump on. The other thing I told them is stick with it and shorten the meetings. Tell them we're going to go shorter and it's just going to be a check-in. We're not going to do a study. And then when they're on the call, ask them, what do you hope happens with this meeting? Some of you are like, I don't want to meet online. Why not? Let us know. And maybe you need to do some one-on-one texts or phone calls and find out why each young adult doesn't want to meet. And then respond to that and say, maybe we just need to do fun nights. Maybe that's all we need right now is maybe the group meetings to them are like, these are too heavy. I don't want to talk about this stuff. I just want to just have a peaceful, calm mind and not think about depth or heaviness right now. So those are some ideas I've noticed that have helped from other churches as well, I've heard.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Todd commented, let's see here, just started at a church and was asked to start a group strategy, previously non-existent at this church 2 weeks before the pandemic started. Okay, let's take a moment and pray for Todd.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Todd.
Wow. Okay. Todd, you're my hero right now. Is there somewhere you can suggest I start looking for ideas to launch? Yeah, let's see here. Todd, how about this? Let's let you and I connect and we will brainstorm some ideas.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the easiest thing to do.
Honestly, I'm not a groups person. I mean, as far as staff, but all of our strategies are changing. You know, our mission is staying the same, but all of our strategies are changing. So this might be the perfect time for him to implement a brand new idea for what is going to work now, because, you know, group strategy that we had before is not working right now. We have to change it. So I think this is prime time for him to be able to do that.
And this is what Regroup's all about, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Right.
So Todd,
go ahead.
sorry, Raul, go ahead.
I would also tell them, hey, for now, until you get connected with one of us, or especially Tracy, just to get a strategy, because Tracy is key on that. She'll help so much. Check out groupleaders.org. Just start reading some of the articles, and that'll give you an idea of what our strategy is, and it'll help you to know how to start leading your leaders now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Todd, I'm assuming that you probably registered with your email, so I will track that down and I'll contact you and we can connect. Let's see here. Lynn, I love that you shared this of a member of your church made baskets for all the church pastors and staff. Amazing. So I think it might be important for our church to know care doesn't go in one direction. That is awesome.
That's
the
awesome.
appreciation shared by this person to me was humbling and encouraging. That is very humbling and encouraging. So thanks for sharing that. Let's see here. And Karen, she says she has a Facebook group for group leaders, but not many interact. How do I get more interaction on that? Raul, I'm going to let you speak to that because you have got interaction on the group me.
Yeah, Facebook is great for posting content, not good for interaction, even though other people do it personally. For our group, it's just we're in the same boat. GroupMe has kicked it up a notch. And here's what I think. I think people interact in the methods that are most available to them. Some of our leaders are on Facebook, but they're not always on Facebook. So they miss all those notifications. GroupMe, a lot of our leaders want to be text because it's more in time and it's like just in time answers as well. So that's been helpful. So I would start a group text. But if you want more interaction on a Facebook group, something that has helped is questions versus statements. Something like, hey, what recipe are you trying out right now? And let everybody post recipes. What is the funnest thing? And I know it's not a real word, but I'm brown and I can't English well. But what is the funnest thing that you have done in your group right now? And maybe that'll help interaction. Or again, try it like a GroupMe. Post your favorite meme right now. Try things that are not necessarily church related, just to create a community feel in there. And that's the snowball effect that will kick in eventually. But Facebook's been a lot harder.
Yeah. And even like on the GroupMe that we have for Gwinnett Church leaders, it was fun. Good Friday night, everyone was posting pictures of watching Good Friday service and doing communion and joking about their, bread, or was it a cracker or a pretzel, or, and I mean, they just keep it super light and fun. And so I enjoy looking through there. And then, but it's not all light and fun. It's serious stuff too, but it just has connected us in a way that has been really engaging. So yeah, I've liked that and it's been great.
One more thing on that, Tracy. We've done giveaways on Facebook and GroupMe that's helped with interaction as well, because that makes them want to come back. So we've done like a Dunkin' Donuts gift card where we didn't even do it as a giveaway. We just posted a QR code for a Dunkin' Donuts gift card, and people could go through the drive-through at Dunkin' Donuts and pick up a donut for themselves and their spouse or whoever. We try to limit it not to their kids because, like me, I have 4 kids, and so the gift card was done like that. But but that helped with interaction as well, because we just got a lot of hearts and thank yous. And I think it's one of the ways we can pastor our leaders as well.
Donuts and coffee. That is true pastoring right there.
I mean, it's like being together on a Sunday morning, isn't it?
I know. Yeah. Almost just the same. No, kidding. Let's see. Okay. So Mark asked a question of, if you started new Zoom community groups during this time, or I guess probably have you, once this crisis is over, would you keep those as digital only groups or try to transition them to in-person groups? Mark, that's a great question. Raul, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one.
I also want to hear what Debbie's doing with her group with this one. But yeah that's a tough one. I've been thinking through this because we're actually talking about group launch, which is happening in August right now. We're having the conversation of, should we do it physically or digitally, even if we can do it physically? I would say when we're starting with Zoom, I would ask the leader what they feel is best, but my goal is always in person. But again, that's the yellow coming out, right? Zoom, I've been talking with Katie Carroll, who's over digital groups for all our campuses, specifically for your move. And those are working fantastic because people have been more transparent, I guess is the word you should say, than they would even in person with people in their own town, which is crazy. So what I would do with your leaders, I would talk with them when it comes closer and say, hey, is the group pretty vulnerable or is it kind of reserved? If they're more reserved, try to meet in person. If they're more vulnerable, I might not change it, because then you don't want to hurt the safety of the group. But again, that is not a do this or that. I would say talk to the leader and see what they're feeling as well, because maybe the leader might be hesitant to go physical. Again, I'm going to try and encourage my groups to go physical, but I'm going to be okay if some of them want to stay virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Raul, to that point, sorry, Debbie.
No, that's okay.
I just thought of this. To that point, I know that we've had some partner churches that have done some digital groups in the past, and as they did them, they would make sure that people got together at least socially, like once a month or something. So
like in
it was
person?
like, yeah, in person, they got to see each other, once a month, but then the group met online. But that just in-person connection just pushed the flywheel so much more for their connections. And so they got to get together physically, have fun together, have dinner. I mean, there's so much that happens when we share a meal together, and I think we're all probably grieving that we aren't doing that right now. But that was just, that might be an idea of the group kind of meets digitally, but then maybe they could get together on a, regular periodic basis to, have dinner together, go have fun, go bowling or whatever the situation might be, just to kind of push that relational flywheel with them. So sorry, Debbie, what were you going to say on that?
No, I was really going to say the exact same thing, is leave it up to the leader, base it on how the group is going. As far as if it's going really well, that it stays on Zoom, then allow it to continue. Ask the group, what do you guys want to do? Some people love the fact that they don't have to get out and go and meet in person. I don't think that'll be the case right away, but I think we will eventually go back to that a little bit. But leave it up to the group and how they're doing. I'm in 2 groups, and one of them, it's really difficult to be transparent over Zoom, and we're trying and we're doing our best and trying not to lose that vulnerability and transparency, which you do a little bit lose with Zoom, because when you start to interrupt each other, which I think is a really healthy thing, when you're interrupting each other, it means you want so badly for the other person to hear what you have to say that you're willing to talk over them. It actually can be healthy, believe it or not. Zoom doesn't do that very well. So it can make it a little bit quirky. But yeah, I would leave it up to the leader in the group. Is this going well? And if it is, let's keep it. And then maybe we do some social things in person. But if it's not, then let's get back in person when we can, is all I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it's being open-handed to kind of go, what is best for the group, and kind of just following their lead. I think we'll be better if we're open-handed with it versus kind of having a policy, so to speak, about it. So
yeah.
So one of our other questions is, what about groups who should be ending in June? We want them to end well, but it seems cruel to talk about ending right now when it could just be another thing that will be taken away. Do we look at extending groups if leaders are willing? And so I'll kind of continue on this one. I would say yes to extend your group for sure.
Yeah,
literally just had this conversation. Yes, continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, again, it's that whole idea of how to, of what is best for the group. And I think probably right now continuing those relationships would be best for the group. So do y'all have, Raul or Debbie, any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, continue the connection. Don't start a new connection unless you have to. If you're already disconnected, then start a new connection. But if you've already got connection with people, who better to go through this with than the people you're already connected to?
I always coach leaders in a time of any crisis in your group, you stay together no matter what. And so this is a crisis. Just like Debbie said, we're grieving. So you don't break up a group during this time. That's my view.
Yeah.
Fully
and I
agree.
think that's a conversation that the group can have together. I know one time we were in a married group and we were supposed to end, but all of us had graduating seniors of high school, and we're like, we're going to end 6 months before our kids graduate. And we're like, wait, this is crazy. Of all times, we're going to need each other. So as a group, we had the conversation and decided, no, we're going to continue on and we'll just end after that. And so it was a healthy conversation. We were all in agreement with it. So yeah, I would just encourage them to keep on going right now. So another question Kirk asked is, I might have missed this, but did you have many Zoom groups before this crisis started? And if not, do you see more of the possibilities of this being a core part of your small group strategy once we return to normal?
I'll take that one. So we were literally about to start digital groups before all this happened. And I think it's going to be a new part of our strategy. We're going to have them. We're even talking about church. Gwinnett Church doesn't stream our services live. We're considering doing that now when we come back to normal also. So yeah, absolutely. We'll include those.
Okay. Yeah. And again, it's that thing of, I don't think that we're going to go back to the way things were exactly. I think we'll adapt and hopefully make it better.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
there's a lot of good that can come out of this for sure. So, okay, one last question from Kevin here. With the recognition that some group leaders don't have the emotional capacity to lead people to meet virtually, how do you coach them?
That's a good one. Debbie, you got something on this?
I don't understand. I don't think I understand the question. So I don't understand the question. Could you say it again, Tracy?
Yeah. So just the idea of some group leaders, they're not going to have the emotional capacity to almost deal with something new. Maybe it's deal with new of technology of how do I do this? Doing a group call on digitally, that just is going to suck the life out of them. So how can we help coach them up to kind of keep their group going or keep the connection going with their group?
Yeah, I think it's
Kevin,
a lot of what we've
I
said. Oh, sorry.
was going to say, Kevin, if I am messing that up, I apologize.
It's your version, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of what we've said as far as as staff members, making sure that those group leaders are okay first. Give them a lot of grace. Give them a temporary pass if they can't lead a group right now. Give them basic needs. Show them how to use Zoom. Show them how to do the digital thing. Give them a counseling referral. There's just so many things that we could say to coach them. That's why it's more difficult for me to answer as far as, there's not just one thing. For each person, it's different. One thing that we found really, really helpful is to ask our leaders on a regular basis, what can I be praying for you about right now? And they're sharing a lot with their groups directors. They're sharing a lot with the staff. I am having trouble here. I'm having trouble there. And then what step to give them next because it's based on their specific prayer request or their specific need. So I would just make sure of what that need is or what that prayer request is and then handle it from there. And if it's that they can't lead a group right now, then they can't lead a group right now. Somebody else might need to step in or somebody from the group step up. So that's
what I've suggested too, Debbie. What you just said is sometimes they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, let somebody else handle it and just be the guide. I always tell my leaders, your job is not to do everything. Your job is just to make sure the group happens. So maybe that means someone else starts the Zoom call and someone else leads the question. You're just there and you pray for people. Yeah. And that's your emotional withdrawal. But at the same time, that's a huge thing you put into the group because you're still keeping the group going, even though you're not contributing verbally, is the way to put it.
Yeah. I feel like this is a prime time to kind of share ownership within the group and let people, some people are going to be more technology savvy than others. And so, hey, let them shine. Let them, have the opportunity to kind of lead out in some ways that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. And so just that idea of how can we share ownership? And I think by the leader kind of going, hey, I can't do this right now. I just don't have the emotional capacity to do it. Right. So that's humbling themselves. And, we all appreciate humility and the group might have that opportunity then to come around and love them where they need to be right now. And so I think, again, of just that being real with each other and creating that safe spot for people to share what's really going on is going to be so valuable. So, well, we are out of time, and so I want to respect y'all's time. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have loved having you on, and we are going to have a call next Wednesday as well that's going to be moving forward with groups, kind of like what comes next after this. And I will tell you, we do not know exactly. We do not have all the answers. So we might be asking all the questions. I don't know. But that's going to be next Wednesday at 1 as well. So I hope that you can join us on that call, and we'll be sharing more information about that. And just as we get ready to do this, as we kind of get ready to close, I just, hope that from our time together, you can kind of hear our hearts of we really care about you and want for you to be healthy so that you can then pastor others towards health as well, and just of how important that is. So, and thanks for what you're doing in your local communities, of your flexibility, your adaptability. You might be worn out from being so flexible. I don't know, but we really appreciate it because what you're doing is just showing people that you love them and you're showing them the love of Jesus. So we are so grateful for that. And just thanks again for your time today. It was a privilege to get to be here with you, and we look forward to next time. So thanks so much. Bye-bye.